this is our series we call Innovation U, talking about different topics along the innovation journey. Today, we're going to dig deeper into a case study, SageSpectra. It's a company that's doing some neat things. I think doing things with a lot of wisdom doesn't mean it's going to be successful, and we'll talk about that, about where they are in their journey and the things that keep them up at night, but doing lots of things the right way. And so as examples to all of us, all of you, just to talk about that. So we'll have a little bit of presentation, a little bit less than last time. We have just 2 panelists today, and then have more of a conversation. We'll start by having it with us as a conversation, and then would love to include others in that conversation. So please, if you have thoughts or questions, as we have a conversation about what it means to take research to a company, to the journey of that company, driving towards the products of that company getting to market. That's me. So 2 original founders of the company. John Hanks is with us here. Amir Zavera is also in the audience. We can ask him questions as also. And then also with us is Madi Heck, CEO of the company. Who's speaking first? Madi? Great. So please take it away, Madi.
All right. Thank you so much, Pete. As he just said, I'm Madi Heck, CEO of the company, SageSpectra, and I've got John Hanks with me as well, our Director of Business Development. And really, SageSpectra's mission is to redefine healthcare through this fusion of multispectral technology, patient information, and AI in order to enable proactive detection, personalized care, and this revolutionary monitoring solution. Our initial application is to screen for what's called peripheral arterial disease, or PAD, early to prevent complications and avoid long-term acute care costs. Now, if you don't know what peripheral arterial disease that's okay. A lot of people don't. It's called PAD, and it's the narrowing or blocking of arteries leading to your extremities, and it affects approximately 20 million Americans. However, it's highly underdiagnosed. Now, the issue without diagnosis and intervention, the outlook is bleak. Patients with PAD have a 21% increased risk of heart attack, stroke, hospitalization, or death within 1 year. And if you look at that graph on the bottom right, a severe form of PAD is called critical limb ischemia, or CLI. And critical limb ischemia leads the 5-year all-cause mortality rates over colorectal cancer, breast cancer, and coronary artery disease. Now, the good news is that with early diagnosis, the treatment is simple, low cost, and effective. With medications and lifestyle changes, the mortality risk is reduced 20 to 54% over an 8-year period. And that's where our solution comes in. SageSpectra's solution for early PAD screening is a low-cost portable device that easily and accurately screens any patient at risk of PAD in minutes. And I'm going to hand it off to John to dive more into how the technology works.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Hanks. My background is in product management, so I think of myself as a researcher, but I was in industry for 30 years and did R&D management and product management. Have launched a couple of $1 billion worth of products over time. So I'm a little bit different from the perspective of getting commercial products to market. I think about how to make products, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's just who I am. So when I see this shot here, to me it's an early prototype, and as an inventor for this, and Dr. Z is here, Dr. Zavera, it's nearly cringeworthy. Right? It's like, I want it to be better. I mean, it's just in its early 3D prototyping stage, but we've made measurements and we've done feasibility tests, and we're going to show theirs in just a minute. Our value proposition is how to make measurements fast. The competition, the standard of care from the 50s is 20 minutes long, right? And we can do it in 3 minutes or less. The latest data that we've collected, maybe even 30 seconds. So we keep getting better and better. So that's the direction that we're going. And then the other high-level message is that this idea of adding AI plus measurements plus patient information is really medical device 2.0. All medical devices will be doing this in the future. In the past, the physician would collect the measurements and use their knowledge to make a diagnosis. We can do that with AI today. And we've been talking internally about this is really every device will have this. Not just this device that we're creating. And the proof of that, we've validated it with the simplest, lowest, device that you can think of, temperature measurements. We've already licensed technology to a medical device company that takes simple surface temperature measurements plus patient information and predicts core body temperature. So there's no need for a non-invasive esophageal or rectal thermometer. So we've kind of validated this idea of medical device 2.0. What we've learned is, we have to go target a large market opportunity, and peripheral arterial disease is large. By some estimations, the economic burden is as big as diabetes. The challenge is most people are asymptomatic over the age of 60. So if you could roll up your legs here, I probably could make a diagnosis. Maybe we'll do that in a minute, Craig, okay? So we've learned enough where I can look at you and I can go, you're at risk. But we put all that knowledge into our device. So that's what we're doing. Technically, it's a spectrometer. It's an 8 wavelength spectrometer. We take simple patient information, like age. Have you smoked? Do you have diabetes? And the combination of that information allows us to make a very accurate measurement. Okay, next slide. Why this is important is it's medical device 2.0. All medical devices will have this. I'm pretty sure we could make a more accurate blood pressure measurement using this technique, but we haven't decided to do that. We've done it for temperature and for PAD, for PAD. And so that's why we're going in this direction. Richer contextual data, greater accuracy, more reliable, and also from an IP, from a business perspective, we've got our first patent, just allowed in January, that combines these elements to predict peripheral arterial disease. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Madi, and she's going to talk about our feasibility. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, John. And we were able to complete a feasibility study at the San Antonio Vascular and Endovascular Clinic. And this first slide just shows the breakup of who had PAD, who did not have PAD, and who had what's called non-compressive PAD. Now, this is where the patient's vessels are calcified. So it doesn't react under the current standard of care that John was mentioning called ankle brachial index the same way. And ABI is not reliable for these individuals. So with this study, we were able to show, just with this first feasibility study, an 86.5% accuracy compared to ABI of 63% accuracy. That was just with the limited trial. However, we've also looked at a competitor's trials before, and the highest ABI got was about 76%. So as you can see, ABI is outdated and needs some improvements, especially for those individuals with calcified vessels. So think diabetic patients. Now, what John was mentioning, where we could use this method for multiple applications, that is our hope. That is our hope for the future, being able to expand to these other tissue health applications, including looking at the potential for wound healing. So say an individual has a wound on their leg. One of their vessels might be occluded. However, they have enough what's called collateral vessels that is bringing blood flow to the area that they might not require surgery. And we have a video from Dr. Lisa Ochoa who will be going into that as well as these other applications, including the appropriate amputation site, looking at early detection of pressure injuries, and as well as postoperative monitoring of surgical flaps. So being able to apply that model of multispectral measurements, patient information, and AI for all of these additional applications in the future. Now, as of right now, as John alluded to, we have an exclusive licensing agreement with Texas A&M University, and our patent was granted on January 2nd, 2024. So we were very excited about that. We also have an established partnership with the San Antonio Vascular and Endovascular Clinic, as well as several other clinics who have agreed to partner with us in the future for clinical trials. We've completed our first feasibility trial with those results I just mentioned, and our second study is underway currently. We are hoping to finish it and get it concluded actually this April, and we're very excited for those results. And we've also, one of the things I believe that we'll probably talk more about with Pete is that we've been raising some internal funds in order to avoid diluting equity excessively up till this point. One of those ways was with the temperature patch that John had mentioned. We also have another contracting agreement with another company. We've been able to devote limited resources to those projects to bring in revenue so that we're not just handing out equity. Now, as for the board, I'm the CEO. I have my MBA and my master's in biomedical engineering, but really I've had a lot of experience with customer discovery and market research for startups. We also have John Hanks, who gave his background. He has over 30 years in the medical device industry, and probably every member on this board except for me has a 10-page resume with how much experience that they have. Dr. Michael St. Cyr is our CMO. He's a plastic surgeon at Banner Health. And Dr. Mir Zavare, he's our CTO. He is an electrical engineering expert, really been doing an incredible job of leading our R&D efforts. And then the person I really want to highlight on our advisory board is Dr. Lisa Ochoa. She is a vascular surgeon and founder of the San Antonio Vascular and Endovascular Clinic. She has been incredibly valuable to our team. With everything that she's done, she has provided insights. She has provided access to our clinic and to our patients. She has given us information about the path that we should be going down and different applications that we should be looking at. And then we also have two unofficial advisors, Dr. Jeffrey Martinez and Dr. Sandeep Rao. And here is Dr. Lisa Ochoa. She was hoping that she would be able to join us on the panel today, but she is incredibly busy, and as on a Tuesday afternoon, she just wasn't able to make it, but she was wonderful and provided a video for us.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Ochoa. I'm a board-certified vascular surgeon, and I am the CEO and president of the San Antonio Vascular and Endovascular Clinic. Our practice is focused in the most underserved areas of San Antonio, on the south side, near east and near west sides, and one of the healthcare outcomes that we follow are diabetes-related amputations. And so what we have learned is that due to social determinants of health and lack of investment in infrastructure in these communities, we have higher predisposition for diabetic amputations as an outcome. Part of the challenge of preventing these diabetic amputations is really diagnosing early peripheral arterial disease, or that process of the buildup of cholesterol and plaque that enters our arteries and blocks blood flow to the legs, and so we have bad circulation. That diagnosis should ideally come before the patient is symptomatic, when they just have risk factors. And the challenges there have not only been that we don't have enough providers in the south side or in rural areas that are predisposed to these complications, but the technology or the type of study that we use. Currently, the gold standard is an ankle brachial index, and that's where we place a blood pressure cuff on the arm, take a blood pressure in the arm, take a blood pressure at the ankle, and compare those blood pressures. Ideally, if there's no blockage of flow to the legs, the ratio should be around 1. The challenge with that is it's kind of a technical study, meaning someone has to know anatomically where those arteries lay to get good Doppler waveforms, as well as our diabetics have very calcified vessels that really makes that ankle brachial index just not a reliable tool to diagnose peripheral arterial disease. So when Madi came to me and told me that she had a device that she was engineering that actually measures tissue perfusion, rather than trying to identify the exact waveform to the exact artery in the foot, that really piqued my interest. Ultimately, that's what we care about. Whether a blood vessel is open or not, whether a person has formed, we call them collaterals, blood vessels that travel around the native vessels to get blood flow there anyway, we want to know, is that enough to heal a wound? And so tissue perfusion really would hopefully guide the value of, can a wound on a foot heal or not? And do we have lack of blood flow in the area or not? And so when she came to me, I was very excited because I believe that this screening tool is not only going to be more reliable, but the ease of use, the cost effectiveness of it, the efficacy of it is going to be so that we can put maybe this device even out in rural areas where we can have medical assistants or maybe even a lay person to be able to get adequate, reliable screening studies that tell us if someone is at risk for peripheral arterial disease or not. I'm really honored to be able to sit and speak with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I have a busy week, but I am excited to be able to talk to everybody here. I'm reviewing the questions right now, and one of the questions was, how do I see the product delivering value? And so the value, as I mentioned, was not only in diagnosing peripheral arterial disease early, and that it'd be a reliable tool to do so, but it's going to be a value to primary care doctors, payers, insurers, managed care companies, because the long-term complications of someone with peripheral arterial disease actually end up being heart disease, build-up cholesterol and plaque in the blood vessels to the heart that can cause a heart attack, cerebrovascular disease, build-up cholesterol and plaque in the blood vessels that go to the brain that can cause a stroke, that really leads to lifelong mortality and morbidity. So the value in diagnosing this early and treating early really serves the entire population, from the patient themselves to the primary care physicians, all the way up to the payers and managed care groups. I have another question here, is what role do I have, or how am I compensated? When Madi first came to me, I didn't expect any compensation. I was excited to be a part of creating a tool and proving its use in my patient population. However, when she did offer equity into the company, it built that integrity with our relationship. It made me confident that this was something that we were in together, and that we were both going to see it through to the end, work through the barriers, work through the challenges, and having someone else in the end dedicated at that level to push something to fruition is, I think, the value that has added for me. I'm thankful that I get the opportunity to speak to you. I'd like to give you my contact. My cell phone number is 210-560-5265 if you have any questions. And my email address is lochoa@thesafeclinic.com. Y'all have a good day. It's so nice being able to speak to you.
I know she can't hear me. I feel like we should still applaud her, right? I mean, I know that's like the most lack of gratifying applauding to a video. That was still awesome.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have for our slides.
So awesome. So thank you for that. So again, the more conversational that we can make this, I think, the better. And so maybe, John, start with you, since I think the work started with you. I observe, and I think we're all observing it, the elements of a really strong team, a team that works together well, just watching the dynamic of you and Madi at the microphone and the comfort with which you share back and forth. Can you talk a little bit about how the team came together, how you think about the team, how you found Madi, how you knew she was the one, just some of that team formation kind of stuff?
Yeah. Every company's origin stories are interesting, right? So I can talk a little bit about that. So I was a professor of practice, and I went back to work in 2016, and I worked in Silicon Valley. And I'll kind of give you some context here. I worked in Silicon Valley, and then COVID hit in 2020. So I came back to the university and restarted my professor career back here. And I am the co-director of the Masters of Engineering program. And so we draft about 25 to 30 students a year. And Madi was the first interview that I had coming back. And I'm like, man, I hope every student is this good and this articulate. And I like to draft MBA students into engineering. So I have about 3 to 5 students a semester. They're both engineering and MBAs, because my background is the combination of technology and business. And I like that combination because you can be really dangerous if you have both. And so Madi was in that group. And the origin story of the invention, so when I was in Silicon Valley, I worked for a company, and we made all of the optical heart rate modules, or all of them is a strong word. We made several 100 million of them that went into phones and smartwatches, Many of them, you may be wearing a device that my team worked on. And so I had this technical background in how light interacts with tissue, and had been looking at different applications. And we identified this company that was having some good success, and we said, we think we can do a lot better than them. In fact, they reached $1 billion in market cap. So they went public, and we think we can beat them. So that was kind of like, oh, market opportunity overlapped with people. Start the team with the right people. And then at that time, Dr. Zavera and I started working together. And Dr. Zavera does like volume calculations on food before he eats it. I mean, he's really intelligent, right? He just does these kind of calculations, and he's this awesome electric engineer. And we started working together and sketching out some designs. And sure enough, we had a prototype really quick. And so that was kind of the origin story of how the team came together. The fourth member of the team is a physician early on, and he was a wound care specialist, basically a plastic surgeon that was just positive about everything. Just amazing partner. We would come to and say, what about this? And we've had to coach him how to be more negative. And actually, if I'd had to pick a partner, I'd pick somebody that was so positive. I had to coach them how to tell us that the baby is ugly. And that's what we've had to do with him. And he has always been so supportive. And so I'll stop there. I can go on, but I'll stop there. I think I went beyond your question.
No, good. So Madi, similar question.
Mm-hmm.
John said it. You were early career, very capable, really interesting background, world of opportunities for you. What was it about this opportunity that attracted you for this to be your one for at least however long you're here? Mm-hmm. And then maybe say a little bit about how you think about building team, because you're the captain of this team now. So how do you think about that?
Man, my story is a little, again, like John was saying, every origin story is unique and interesting. Mine, I swear it's fate. So I originally, my undergrad was Baylor University. I was mechanical engineering, had worked at ExxonMobil for about a year as a co-op. And so oil and gas, I worked at the refinery and their olefins plant, and I hated it. I wanted so badly to like it, but I did not. I didn't see how we were, helping people. I wanted that. That's what I figured out. I wanted to find a way that I could use engineering to help others. And my last semester at Baylor, I took a class called Intro to Medical Devices Design and Evaluation, which was a mouthful. They really needed to shorten it. But it was amazing. We got to work with a physician, learn about their problems, and truly engineer a solution that would help solve that problem. And by the end of the year, it was if anyone knows about pelvic organ prolapse and pessaries, we redesigned a pessary for pelvic organ prolapse. And we were looking at, well, should we patent this? And the truth was, we just didn't have any of the business acumen to try to take it a step further. And then that was the next step that I realized, okay, I lack this, but I want this to be something I do with my life. I just found such a passion with it. So did the MBA and Masters of Engineering program at A&M, met John. And just like John said, he was the first person I was the first student he met. He was the first teacher I met. And again, it was fate, because originally I was supposed to meet with Dr. Haritas. And by some stroke of fate, he had to reschedule his block. And I was one of the students, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know this guy, but I'll sign up with John.
Dr. Haritas is great too.
He was also great. But I met John. And so we wouldn't have been here if we hadn't met at orientation. And it was just like one step after another, and meeting Dr. St. Cyr, the physician that John was talking about, who was so positive and passionate, and let's figure out ways to help people. And then Dr. Zavari, who then actually figures out how to engineer it to help those people. And it was just such just being able to combine all of our unique strengths, and that we're all passionate and we all want this to work. And I kind of hit the point where I wasn't planning on starting a company right out of grad school, but the opportunity presented itself for something that I was truly, I'm going to say it again, passionate about, and decided to take a leap of faith, mainly because, and I wouldn't have done it without our team. If we didn't have as strong of a team as we have, if we didn't have these people that I knew were going to support me in this journey as well, and hopefully I support them, I think it would have been a much harder decision to make. And I'm sorry, I also went on.
No.
probably
This
way
is, I think,
longer.
no, it's all perfect. All right, so I'm going to ask a follow-on question, and if at some point, generalize it so you don't have to reveal too much of your personal finances in this. On the other hand, I've been impressed by the way you guys have, from the beginning, structured your company, structured your governance, I think with wisdom of what is likely to happen to your company or as you interface with investors and others going down the road. And so, John, maybe you have some more battle wounds than Madi on this, and maybe talk about some of your battle wounds that have led to you, some of your thoughts about how things have been shaped in SageSpectra and why you've shaped some things and shapes in Sage the way you have, anticipating things down the road so that you're in a position to be assessed as strong and are able to move forward.
Okay, yeah. I get this question, like, how did you organize your company? And first, we just talked about we had to have the right team. And then what is a equitable way to come up with how to organize the equity shares? And I believe I am a capitalist. I am a capitalist, and I'm going to try to incentivize people the right way so that they will be all in. And I have 2 children that graduated from college in this time frame. As a professor that leads the Master of Engineering, I know what the students are getting paid. Right? Our students are getting paid really top dollar, and I know Maddie's a top student. I know what she would get paid, and how do I incentivize her to stay to work on this project was in my mind. And so, I guess I could ask Dr. Z, who's one of the fairest professors that he knows, and I would hope that he would say John Hanks. And so I want to make sure my faculty partner is also incentivized and really passionate about this project. And I have this thing that I call luck lines. Is I don't want people working on the team that just are there as a luck line, right? They have to be in. And even our domain expert, Dr. St. Cyr, is a world-renowned plastic surgeon. He meets with us every week, and he's the first one in the meeting, the last one to leave, always there. So how do you organize these things? I basically laid out a plan with Madi. So realize you can get paid a lot if you left. We're going to try to raise capital, and we have a little capital that we're going to put in. So I put in, and Dr. St. Cyr put in money. And we've incentivized Amir and Madi to meet milestones. And we met those in the first year. And that was awesome. Financial as well as technical milestones. And even though, I'm the dinner, brought it together, I also had this perspective from my business career is that, ideas are cheap. They are real cheap. And to make things work, you got to build a team. Sales and marketing and manufacturing usually costs 3 times what it costs to R&D something. And that's what we needed. We needed, an organization that Madi could help build from a marketing, sales, communications, and build that out. So I didn't go into it thinking I would be the majority shareholder. In fact, as it is now, after the milestones have been met, Madi, the external members own more than Dr. Z and I have. So that was thought out that if we make it to this point and they meet their milestones, then we're going to keep our cushy prof jobs, right? And invent other stuff so that we can spin it out into SageSpectra. So we're trying to invent the next thing, right? So we're working on this concept of medical device 2.0, and we have a dozen ideas, right? I can't stop. Dr. Z can't stop at thinking new ideas. So, all right, I went into professor mode there, Pete, so I'll be quiet now.
No.
I think it was very valuable too, the fact that we discussed it as a team very early on together. It wasn't like you came to me and you're like, okay, Madi, this is what we're thinking. You're getting this much, and then you're going to get this much vested. It was something that we agreed upon together. We talked about, okay, what realistic milestones can I make? And then also as part of that, Dare, deal. It was, even if you don't reach your milestones, the board can vote to still keep you as our CEO if they think you're doing a good job. So it's not like you're an outsider trying to make this milestone or you're going to get kicked to the curb. No, we're truly a team, hoping that we can each work together successfully to make it work, and understand challenges happen as well.
Yeah, and
along the way.
this idea of the milestones is incentivizing people is important. And then also there's this challenge, especially in the early phases, with a team of, are they really going to deliver? And how do you mitigate the risk of somebody just being a luck line on the team? And so that's what I'm trying to figure out always, is like how committed. So I had a chance to work with Madi before we did this, right? Early phase, do some market analysis. It was awesome.
We worked on another project.
Yeah, we
together
worked
as
on
well.
projects together. So it's a little bit of a case of like, well, what's the personality like? Or because I know to make a startup successful, you have to be you can't be just a part-time thing. And Madi's been thinking about it 60 hours a week or more for a year and a half, 2 years now, right? And that's what it takes. And in my professor job, I got a lot of things that are pulling me in a lot of different directions. And so I have to deliver to students in my class, deliver to my department. And so it's just better to have somebody that could dedicate their time to it. So that's the mentality.
Awesome. So Dr. Ochoa is newer to the team. She's the clinician. She's a representation of the end user, but she's not running the company. So how do you guys incorporate the perspectives, her perspective specifically, those kinds of perspectives, and still recognize you got to run a company?
I think a lot of it's just we still meet with her pretty often because we're going to her clinic for trials, and then I meet with her separately for her meetings, and I discuss those issues as well. Kind of trying to figure out, okay, will this actually make money? And I've talked to her about like reimbursement. Well, does this have reimbursement? And she's very knowledgeable, and she's also been able to help point me to people where if she doesn't know an answer, then she's pointing me to someone who does. And I think it's been very significant finding someone with her drive and passion to solve this problem, because she's I wish you guys could see it. There have been times where I've needed to talk to her and figure something out, and we're in her clinic and I'm like, can I just take 10, 20 minutes of your time? And she is like, yes. And she's running from one patient room and she's sitting down and she's eating her salad and she's like, okay, fire your questions. So having someone that's that driven to solve this problem has been helpful. I don't know, question about specifically making sure, okay, taking her input and will it actually work as a company? But she's been very helpful with the reimbursement side as well.
I should have said, so those of you that online that were with us last time, I want to apologize again for last time, some of the technical difficulties, which led us to this time simplifying significantly before we bring things back in. But if you have a question online, we still have a way to capture it. So enter it through the chat and it will get relayed to me. And so please want to make sure if you're online, please feel engaged. You mentioned value, and that's, it's something that when I worked at Cleveland Clinic, became very impressed upon me that somebody needs to buy this thing and they have to be willing to pay for it. And it can't be as good as status quo. And there's some perverse motivations in healthcare that are not so obvious. And so like John, when you're up here, you talked about going from 20 minutes to 3 minutes, or 20 minutes to 3 minutes to 30 seconds. And so how do you guys think about going from really cool engineering technology accomplishment to making sure you're paying attention to something that somebody is going to pay for, and they're going to overcome whatever their version of status quo to pay for your thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think part of it has been coaching. Also, again, right, we come back to coaching. We did the NSF I-Core, talked to 100 people. Well, I think it was 120,
Yeah.
and understood the ecosystem. And, do we have the gumption to go knock on any door to figure out where the value is? And that's not everybody. It's just not. But it's Madi, right? Madi can do that. I can do that. Dr. Z, I know, can do that if we push him a little bit, right? But that idea of trying to understand where the value is we will go under we'll open any rock and go under it to figure out where the value is. And so that's been the mentality, to find the value. It's nice when you have a player out there that kind of goes before you. And we learned a lot from another player. And that's kind of a trick, right? We're going to look at the competition. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And then look at Medicare, for example. Medicare, our product could be used with Medicare assessment, and 38 million patients a year have an assessment through Medicare. And so that's what we're targeting, is like, could our device be used every year by 38 million people? So really trying to figure out the target where we're going to take it has been our mentality.
And there's also value is probably one part of it. Figuring out, okay, how do these providers get paid? And that was another part of it. And then also, are there any tweaks that we need that will help providers take it on? And so one of those, for instance, is providers really want to see that ABI range. Not necessarily use the technology, but they know that range. They know that range of, okay, if it's 0.91, that person's healthy. If it's below that, they're unhealthy. So can we correlate our results and then still be able to output a number within that range, so it's easy for the clinician to still understand? And so that's one area that's easier for them to take on the technology, because they know what that range means.
Yeah, in the medical space, there's so many stakeholders. That's part of the challenge too. So we have providers, which are doctors. Not everybody realizes, okay, providers are doctors. Then there's payers, which is Medicare and the health insurance companies. So we go and talk to health insurance companies. We go and talk to Medicare. We basically went around to understand the value to all the stakeholders.
Well, and healthcare is exceptional that way. About figuring out who is your actual customer is in some ways more challenging than some other fields. But it's true everywhere, right? You have to figure out who is really going to pay you for your innovation. And it's a wonderful world that we live in when we live in innovation every day. But every day, everything we do is some version of doing something that nobody's done before. And so,
well, to your point, Pete,
yeah.
is look, we had to, what's remarkable? If you're doing 20 minutes and we come in and say 3 minutes, that's remarkable to them.
Well, but how does that 17 minutes mean something? And so I've seen lots of people say, well, it's going to save OR time. OR time's $1,000 a minute, so that's going to save you $17,000. I've seen people on the inside of hospitals say, unless I can add an extra case or unless I can send nurses home early, it doesn't save me any money. Mm-hmm. And so, so there's the different, really understanding the what it takes to get to yes from your buyer side. And that's, again, you talked about it. You've talked to hundreds. You're going to talk to more. You brought a version of that onto your team, so you have that. It's part of you now. Again, it's just been impressive to see the work that you guys are doing along those steps.
Yeah, we're trying to lay the groundwork for a successful company. You got to coach and build the foundation. Right.
So continuing that. So statement of the obvious, and again, you guys talked about it already. You were introduced to each other from a student teacher kind of relationship. More experience, less experience, but you run the company, right? You're the CEO, and it doesn't mean that it's iron fist dictator that it's a team, but at the same time, it's your job, and especially as you get other stakeholders of investors and others to come in, they'll be looking and say, Madi, we're investing in you as the lead for this company. Talk a little bit about the dynamics of and how much you've had to do that now, and as you think about going into the future of balancing technology development with product delivery. And you're not at product delivery yet, but that's what you're coming towards, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think about balancing that and ongoing research in these guys' labs and saying, that's fine, but I got to deliver a freaking product?
One thing I will say that's been really helpful for us is we do have weekly meetings where we're talking about, okay, what's the progress that we've made up to date? I have shown them probably 10 different iterations of, this is the timeline that I want to meet. Can we? Amir's smiling at me right now because he knows this is the timeline I want to meet. And for April, I want to get this and this and this and this done. Is this realistic? Can we actually make this? If not, what's a realistic timeline? Because before I can go to this next step and talk to these people, I want to make sure we have these results done. So a lot of it is just staying on the same page. I will say, going back to your point earlier of, going from like student teacher to now I'm CEO, I think that was also just like a big adjustment for me personally. Because John is, outside of my teacher, he's been a mentor. So me trying to figure out what's a balance for us and me trying to find my own voice. And what's really been very cool about our companies too is I think we approach it from different angles. As John talked about before, he's thinking of new ideas constantly. Where can we take this technology? And I have to be the person that's like making sure that we're staying focused and is this the right route? So I'm sometimes the no gal. I have found out I am sometimes the one that's poking holes in things a lot and being like, oh, I don't know if that's the right route. What about X, Y, and Z? What does this mean? So I'm kind of the person that makes us stay on course, stay focused, while also straddling that line of knowing that you may need a pivot and be flexible because you may need a pivot to be successful. But as far as trying to balance that, development with talking to investors and all of that, a lot of it's just staying on the same page with my team and making sure that we're hitting the milestones that we've laid out for ourselves.
Thank you. So I'll make the same offer to the people in the room that I made to the people online. I don't know why I'm doing it later, but if you have questions, please, we've got another microphone that we can cycle around, and or just it's a small enough room, just blurt out and we'll take it. But I've got plenty of questions and I'm going to just keep going. So please. Oh,
Got one right here.
Go ahead.
Hi. Question for you, just kind of a philosophical question. AI is becoming permeated in our society. Litigation, we live in a litigation-prone society. When you have AI making decisions on people's health and diagnosis based on AI tools, has there been any litigation in that area? I'm just curious to know where that's going to lead us down the road.
Yeah, I teach machine learning AI classes here, and one of my case studies is a company called OsteoDetect. And how do I address that question is, well, the gold standard, if you're doing a classification, you train the data using the experts in the world, the doctors. So we're trying to use the experts and compare those to less than experts. So that's one answer, but that's not always the case with AI. There's always the risk of litigation and legal issues. I don't think they're going to pick a small company to pick on. They're probably going to pick a large company to pick on from a legal perspective. So we'll probably follow what happens in the market from that perspective. The big pockets, we don't have big pockets. They're not going to pick on us. They're going to pick on somebody with bigger pockets, and we'll learn from that.
We got a question from the phone.
Yep, we've got a question we actually have three questions, but the first one is from Jasmine Delgado Bilbay. Will there be more clinical trials with a larger population, and does your product have to go through FDA approval process?
Yes. So John could probably speak to this a little bit better than I can, but so pretty much in order to do those large multi-site clinical trials, you have to have your finalized version of your device completely, because if you change your device at all, that changes the algorithm. And then you have to redo your trials. So we're doing feasibility trials right now. The goal is to then move on to raise and then to move on to manufacturing so that we can manufacture our final device for clinic use. Once we do that, then we have as you saw on the slides, we already have the clinic set up and the partners ready to go to do these trials. We will be in 4 clinics to do about 300 to 400 patients. That we have looked at different regulatory strategies as well, kind of doing it in a stepwise approach so that we can save money, getting a tissue oxygenation device approved first, and then raising to do the larger clinical trials for PAD. But that's all in discussions with our regulatory consultants. The short answer is it would be a 510K approval on the regulatory side.
So I once heard Mark Cuban speak, and after you could wade through all the F-bombs and the shits and all that kind of stuff, right? One of the things that he talks about, and if you see him on Shark Tank, he's, what's your revenue, right? And so I just want to make it crystal clear, because we see this in a majority of the kinds of things we work with, and so we take it for granted. But so I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. So how many raises do you anticipate before you get to your first product sale?
Probably
Financial, like investment,
Two.
fundraising raises.
Two
raises, right? So, and the second one's going to be bigger than the first one, probably, right? So, in total, are you willing to share a ballpark of what the two are going to add up to?
Yeah, it's probably going to be 2 to 3 million total, right?
Probably at least, right? And so
minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's going to be some.
Well, I'm saying that too, Pete, because we've been darn scrappy to this point, right? So we Dr. Z and I think about being scrappy and how we're going to get there. But if you take the whole med device 2.0, where you integrate AI and all that, it'll be really large.
Yeah.
If we hit the opportunity and need to hit it. Madi touched on, we've looked at the competition. We know how many patients we need to do in our FDA or clinical trials, and what the accuracy we need to meet, and all those kind of things. And we have to have a final device before we even do those tests. So the money just starts to pile up, but it's in that $3 million range probably.
And that means that somebody's going to have to buy into a vision, right? And you said it, buy into a vision, even with Dr. Ochoa and whoever, 100 people, thought whatever. There's still a vision for what this is, how their $3 million investment is going to translate into somebody paying at somebody, and what that adoption is going to look like. And so that's again something to be figured out. And then you have your first sale. This is something that myself as an engineer, I almost always take for granted. It's not like you're going to have your first sale and then instantly have so much revenue that you're going to grow the company off of your company revenues, right? Or sales revenues. So you're probably going to have another raise to allow you to go grow a company, ramp manufacturing, build inventory, So you're going to have one or two raises, 3 million-ish into the hole to get to the point where you can sell a product, and then the privilege of raising a bunch more money so that you can hopefully try to sell enough product that somewhere in there you break even.
Well, a part of that is you have to have a big enough vision and opportunity to fit all of those raises. And that's a challenge. That is a real challenge, to be able to paint $1 billion vision, right? But that's part of what we do, is try to figure that out.
In our world, lots of times people think immediately, I need to raise money, venture capital. Venture capital is one form of investor. And I say that because these guys are developing a company that I think has the potential to be venture investable, but there's lots of companies that are not. And you still need to raise the money to get to an endpoint. But it takes that hundreds of million going on $1 billion kind of vision to really attract like real professional venture capital. But if your technology does not have that kind of revenue potential, we will probably need to find other types of investment other than true, vulture capital.
We've had that discussion too, right? We've had that discussion. It's like, well, it'd be great if we were a lifestyle business and we all did all the right things and we had a good income, and we could do that. But we think we have something bigger. Let's go for the bigger, right? So we've had that discussion.
And part of it too is applying for all of the funding sources that you can, not just venture capital, but looking at grants and looking at accelerators and looking at friends and family and random people on the street.
If anybody wants to write the United check, I'm sure they'll take that, just so you know.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is we have revenue.
Yes, and that was and the other
We
big
sold
one.
a licensing deal and we're
Yeah.
delivering it, and they're going to start shipping in 2025. So we're using that money to help fund our current activities.
So we got a question here. Then
So-
Chris, I'll come back to you. Yeah.
So my question is your device or your prototype is already close to have the packaging? I mean, ready for the
No,
real
no,
use?
it's not.
So what is your vision? Like how long? I mean, just an estimation.
Yeah.
Like 3 months, 1 year. How long will it take you?
Yeah,
have the
I think
packaging?
in terms of money more than time, right? So Dr. Zavera and I talk about technology readiness level. NASA has a scale of 1 to 8. We think we're at a 5 or 6, right? And then we use components. And, you know, this is our background. We use components that are off the shelf, but we don't know if those products the life cycle of those products. So we need to go and understand if we can design it for manufacturing. It passes all the medical regulations. There's, power regulations. There's all these different regulations that we have to pass. And we have partners that have done that. And we went and got them as a contract manufacturer under 13485, which is the quality regulations. So all these details go into the medical side and then the nut of it is we have to have the final product because the way we collect the data affects the algorithm. So that's probably going to be, in the range of $700,000 to get, not time, but money to get there. And we're already at TRL 5 or 6, and 8 is commercially ready, right? So we're close, but in the world I came from, really $700,000 is not that much. It's just really not.
So Madi, in the no and the go version that you are, does that? I mean, you hear that answer? How do you react to that? Can you live with that? I mean, if you're thinking about 700,000, I got to raise money. What does this burn look like? This is your salary plus teams in that same bucket of money.
I think as far as purely manufacturing, it's just all the other things you have to consider because we're not only raising that much for only manufacturing, it's all of the other things as well. It's the regulatory. Just for one pre-sub for regulatory, it's like 25,000 at least. So it's
a pre-submission to the FDA, right?
Oh,
so
yes,
she's going to submit. She's
Yeah.
going to submit a bunch of questions and some other information to the FDA to get some feedback, to understand, to get some insight into exactly what her 510K should look like.
Yeah.
25,000 just to do that.
Just to do that. And then we work with reimbursement experts as well, who are our consultants, and they've been
Someday she wants to get
fantastic.
paid for her product,
And
right?
someday I would like to get paid. But so it's also thinking about all of the different aspects as well that go into that. And okay, we have to raise for all of these different things. And then we do have to consider the time because we have to be able to show the people who are investing in us all of those milestones. Yeah. So it's it's just a lot to consider.
If we had the money, it would be then only time.
Then it would be, exactly. If we had the money, then it would be then all the time. And then to raise that money, then you also have to show it's so interesting that it's like there are some people or accelerators or investors that invest at they know what they're investing in. They know the time that they're investing in. So you're going to be super early for a lot of people. And then you're going to come back to them and they're going to be like, oh, you're too late now. I'm so sorry. And that seems to be the way for a lot of different funding sources where it's like, you can't miss that cutoff.
Can I add two minor related question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So still follow the same thing. So from your great experience, when likely will be the right time to acquire or to ask the right vendor? Regarding the manufacturing side, in which stage is a time to ask the potential collaborator or partner in the manufacturing? Then the second question. So if we really go to the stage, go to the packaging and getting the device ready to sell, usually where in the business, where can you get the money? Get the funding is like from private one, or likely who will invest on this?
Okay, first question is, when do you engage a contract manufacturer or supplier, we tried to do that really early and got quotes. Would show them the prototype and the demo and feasibility data and says, we need a quote, we're real. And we got real quotes. So that was as early as possible. And we could use that information as a part of our capital raise, as well as our grants. So that answers to the first question. Then the second question, let me rephrase it. It's like, you need money to go sell it. Was that your second question? Yeah, we got that all together. Unit volume, there's design for manufacturing, and then there's per unit cost. And we got that all kind of early on. The per unit cost, there's some variability in that because if you don't meet the exact target, then there's some change. So there's some wiggle room in the contract, but we didn't sign a contract. We said, just give us an estimate, a large band of what that would cost.
So co-founder Dr. Z wants to jump in here.
I have one comment since I've been thinking about this a lot. So from the question Pete asked about like the $2 million and then the question about manufacturing, and I've been thinking about it and I came up with like some thoughts in my mind I wanted to share with everybody. So this $2 to $3 million just to get this is the absolute minimum to pass a device through the FDA. And that's just to get to a device that's sellable. And then you have to build up a sales force on top of it. So you have to think about your revenue. If you want to raise $2.2 to $3 million, you have to, at least if you do the calculations on your net margins and things like that, you have to have at least $20 to $30 million of revenue. So you have to show that to your investors to be able to raise the $2.3 million, to then be able to go to the contract manufacturer that charges you $1 million, $1.5 million to do all of those tests. For you to be able to convince somebody to give you the $1.5 million, then you have to have some feasibility data. And then you have to like work all of these things in parallel, and then you work on your prototype, and then you just scrap together something to get your feasibility data, and then with the feasibility data try to raise, and then all of these questions, all of these come together towards that raise. And then the raise, as John said, once you have the money, as long as your technology is not really science fiction, there are good engineers out there that can make it really professionally for you. But I think to John's point, it really is like to Pete's point, is a factor of, is there really a potential for revenue on at least $3 million raise? That everything comes down to that question, I think.
Yeah. Let's go back to the phone if we could. Just want to.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say earlier in Amir. You just put it so much better words.
It's great to hear Dr. Z talking about gross margins and operating income and revenue. He's a double E, right? It's awesome.
Go ahead, Chris.
Promise this wasn't a plant. From Dan Carlisle online. What role does the university and tech transfer office play in commercialization of technologies like this? Is it mostly a licensing function, or is there more wraparound support?
Yeah. So we've talked about this before. I'm in my 14th month. I think we've got wonderful momentum, but we've got a lot of work to do. Yes, doing a license agreement and doing that in a as painless as way as possible, as a helpful way as possible. We've talked about it in these forums before. When you think about the terms of a license agreement like that, the right thing for us, a place like Texas A&M, to think about is to send through our license agreement, send a signal to the marketplace that we are aligned with sharing the risk, helping a company like SageSpectra grow. To do that, we should not be taking cash out of a company that you heard about it is cash scrappy, right? Texas A&M doesn't, a few thousands of dollars are not going to make a difference to Texas A&M. Will make a big difference to Sage. And so that being said, so how do you share risk? SageSpectra wants to get acquired someday. I'm going to ask you guys about exit strategy at some point, but we should participate in that. That looks like Texas A&M having equity, and that's the trade-off of us taking less in cash, is that we are going to have more in downside or downstream. There is a version of that, and that's another question I want to ask you guys about. What does it mean to have the diligence of investors in your cap table? But so those are in doing things like SBIR support. We are right now, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We are looking at providing some funding to Sage that will show up as a little bit as an investment. So we will do whatever we can to help companies. Understand that our assessment is the same thing that these guys are assessing. Is we will support the companies that we assess have the potential to get to the marketplace, and that's not every company. And if we get to a point with, even if a company is positive, but something, we have new information that's not going to get to the marketplace, then we will stop. And same thing with Madi. If Madi gets to a point where she, as an individual, if she gets to a point where it's like, this is not going to work, she's a capable person. She will go somewhere else. Anyway, Chris, anything else there? So I mentioned exit strategy. So there's some version of you growing into Medtronic. Probably not going to happen, right? So what do you guys say to, what's your outside story and what is your real story about what's your exit strategy?
Way to put it. Mandy, if you mind if I talk about this a little bit?
Go for it. I can add in.
So the outside story is always that you're gonna grow to be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? Because I mean, if you talk about wanting an early exit, then that just doesn't show the commitment to get the best return on your investment. So we're all about medical device 2.0, adding these pieces together. We have a roadmap, a platform. We got 3 decades of work in front of us. Now, if we really hurt somebody with our ideas, and there are existing players out there that we could take revenue from, my experience is those companies will come to us.
Hurt in a competitive, competitively taking money from them and giving it to these guys.
Sorry,
right? That's what he means by hurt.
I didn't mean to be crass. If we can take revenue from them and have a better solution, and they have the sales channel and the marketing channel, the way the medical device market works, they've already spent that money on the sales channel and they want better products. So they'll come in and consider us. So it's a game to, I don't want to call it a game. It's a science and an art to be able to position yourself to be big term vision, but yet opportunistic, and positioning yourself as affecting somebody else's product lines at the same time.
Be open to the opportunities.
That's right. And so we've told some of our players, oh, we've got some nice IP here already, right? We're already starting to seed that. Do you know who we are? You will, right? You will know who we are, right?
I mean, there is an element of that, you said it, and it's not crass. It's the reality of business.
Yeah.
It's
my world.
How do you lots of people, companies only make decisions in response to some pain input.
Absolutely.
You've caused them pain, that you cost them lost revenue, you cost them lost market share, and whether, even if it's not you, they're losing market share to somebody else. How do they overcome that? Oh, you guys could be a solution to helping overcome somebody else causing them.
Right. Or adjacent revenue opportunity for them.
Yeah.
Those are the two cases. You think about, can we show that we're taking revenue from somebody so they get interest, or can we be adjacent to an existing player so they can expand their market?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of two.
Continuation of that. And were you going to say something, Madi?
No, I was saying fit in their portfolio. How can we fit in their portfolio? And that was it.
Continuation of that. Small companies need to be focused, but you guys have, when you guys were up here, you talked about a few different applications. You talk about the potential for decades of pipeline or product. How do you balance that? How are you balancing that for yourself as you think about development? How do you make decisions about what things to stick on the back burner versus things to bring forward? How do you tell that story to investors so that they see the the big vision and don't think that you're going to be scattershot all over the place?
So a lot, and I'll kind of start. So a lot of it too is looking at the applications individually and then understanding all of the different aspects that go with that application. So with one application, it might be a shorter time to market, but more expensive to actually then sell the device. And there's no reimbursement code out there, and it might be harder to get clinicians to use it. Another application, it might take a little bit longer, but they're going to love it. And once we get to market there, every clinician's going to want to buy it, or every home healthcare organization is going to want to have it. So individually looking at these applications, understanding for each of the application what the regulatory strategy would be, what the marketing strategy would be for each of them, because everyone's going to be different. And then choosing a path to go forward and pretty much sticking with it. And when other applications come up, it's something that we say, is this something that we have a device that we can work in right now? Or is this something, yes, that we're going to have to stick on the back burner, and it's something that we're going to focus on in the future, and we can kind of land and expand, get to market, and then expand from there. But a lot of it is pretty much kind of becoming an expert in these different areas and these different regions. And me being the person that pokes holes a lot, while John has these brilliant ideas.
A couple of comments on that. First, from an investment perspective, investors all have a different investment thesis. And so you have to make your pitch match their investment thesis, right? So if they're thinking about vascular disease and that's where they're coming from, you pitch to that. If they're a platform investor, you pitch the platform. So we're trying to be clever enough to go through these murky waters from the investment perspective to get the narrative right for the investor, which is very difficult. If you don't know, you give a single focused message because you look scatterbrained. That's the rule that we've talked about. It's like, you don't know what they want, you go with the single application.
But there is at some point could be the risk of, if you were to talk to somebody, and it's not a problem necessarily, but you would activate their interest in something that is not your current first application, right? That leads to your company getting potentially whipsawed around, right? And so you have, just as you said, it's a balance between this is what you guys as a team, the three of you and the other folks on that screen, right? And the 100 and something people you interviewed.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, and that's fair. So there's like two pieces. That's the narrative piece. And then there's our actual roadmap, right? We have our roadmap where we think we have our multi-$100-million market that we're targeting, right? And we're going to stick to that. Evidence shows that we could get there. And, so we have to have a roadmap in mind, but then we also have to be flexible if an opportunity comes along. So we try to balance that, and really that's just being transparent with the team. Just talking about, here's our roadmap.
And I'm pretty much the person that I was like, is this gonna, if you wanna kind of look at this application and like try to engineer something, how long is that gonna take? How much is it gonna cost? Can we do are there resources that we can use that aren't going to take from our core team that's trying to push this forward, so that we're not distracted, but maybe we can be looking at some other things that we can get revenue from in the meantime that can also help us bootstrap or get us to market faster.
And just as a time check, I intend to go to around 5:30. We can go a little bit over, but I've got enough questions. Do we have a question? Okay.
I have a question. You've been talking a little bit about reimbursement and stuff. Do you have an idea of what CPT code will fall under the device?
So originally there's a CPT code 93922, and then there's 93923, and they're both for ABI. And our competitor is using that code, and we've been working with reimbursement codes to really figure out if we can fall under it, or if there's a way that we can modify it so that we can fall under it, because right now it says like you kind of have to be in conjunction with another tool as well. So that's why we were originally targeting risk assessment. And that was our initial plan, going after risk assessment, because they don't really care about the reimbursement code. They'll get paid from Medicare if the patient screens positive to take, because they're taking care of someone who's more sick, so they get paid an extra amount. So we are looking at that route. There's been some changes in those codes too that are, I think, finally going to be finally effective in like 2026. So everything's kind of constantly changing with reimbursement codes and insurance. And that's why we have those reimbursement experts that are helping us strategize along the way. John, do you have anything else to add to that? Okay.
Yeah. So when I was at BCM, we had a startup company. It was a diagnostic, and they didn't get it. They had to come up with a CPT code, work with Medicare. It was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're trying to.
It's worse than an FDA clearance lots of times.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I have a degree in vascular, general obstetrical, and cardiac ultrasound, so I'm kind of familiar with with that. And we built a platform that's a comprehensive specific. So there's over 50 CPT codes that we reverse engineered the software around, and we're device agnostic and EMR agnostic. So we integrate with over 250 FDA approved devices. But we've used our platform to help companies accelerate their FDA approvals, because we can capture so much data. And we can reverse engineer kind of the data that we're trying to capture around what the roadmap is for the FDA approval. So have you looked at what the requirements are, whether it's number of patients, certain data points, and try to strategize to figure out how you could accelerate that? Because the longer it takes, obviously, the more it costs, and the longer it takes you to get to market, the more money your competitors are making to compete against you.
Yeah,
So
we appreciate that, and I think we understand what you're saying. And I guess the way we've approached it is similar to what you've just said, but we've been targeted on a couple of applications. It seems like you built a platform to do more applications. We said, what do we need for PAD? And that's where we've been focused on. Now, this vision about using AI, the FDA actually gave us that idea. It was kind of interesting in our informal meeting. They said, oh, why don't you look at this code over here that can be added on to existing devices? And so we said, oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
It's interesting and rare that the FDA is in a
Gives you
helpful mode,
information.
right? Yes.
Yeah. And so really that has become our larger vision, because they're like, oh, that's interesting that you can do that. But you also could go faster to market if you just do the device and then do a second clearance based on the algorithm, because our device measures oxygen, STO2, and we can use the indication for STO2 to get to market less than $3 million, we hope.
And
right?
yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. If you remember, I said stepwise. That's kind of what I was alluding to.
So we definitely want to talk to you after the meeting.
So I want to come back to the notion of dilution versus market validation that you get when somebody writes you a check as an investor, and how you think about balancing that.
Just how we think, like.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, equity is precious, but if you don't get people to demonstrate that they have done their diligence on you and validated you as evidence through them writing you a check, and yes, in some kind of way, getting an SBIR and going through a study section and getting the score is some kind of validation. It's not the same as having a professional investor who employs their own set of market experts and their own set of regulatory experts and their own hundreds of years of experience of seeing products make it to market and wreckage along the side of the road. So how do you think about, and because you're confronting that, I'm assuming, as a group, right? How do you think about raising money, recognizing that your valuation is at a point, so you would have to give away relatively more versus being financially scrappy, and so deferring. How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, just in your own description, I think you put it really well. We've been, as John likes to put it, scrappy up until now. And unfortunately, you can only take that to a certain point. It's hard to be scrappy when you need like $3 million. And so I think the biggest part for me, is at least in my personal opinion, John might have a different opinion. I think it's less about letting that equity go and being diluted and more about making sure it's the right person that you're letting that equity go to. We don't want to just get a check from somebody because they're going to be your partner, essentially. You want someone that's going to be with you for the long haul. I mean, Dr. Ochoa said it so well in her video where she was like, that just like strengthen the integrity of our relationship. We're going to see this through together till the end. And that's who I want as partners. That's who I want investing in our company, people who see the vision, and then people who over the course of time, it will be a mutually beneficial relationship. We'll be successful, and then hopefully we can count on them for additional support or maybe additional investment in the future or other contacts they can help us with. So for me, it's not necessarily about the dilution is making sure that you're getting that equity or that you're giving that equity to the right people while also getting that investment to take you to the next level.
Co-founder Z.
Yeah, on the incentive, I had some thoughts. I thought I shared them as well. So I'm a faculty member, part of this team as well. And as John said earlier, me and John together have less equity than the outside people, being Madi and our Dr. St. Cyr have. A lot of it is like any capitalist system is about how you structure the incentive so everybody keeps going on. Like again, as Madi said, you can't be scrappy when you need $3 million, so you have to get it. And if you want to get it, you have to find structures that it makes sense. So as somebody that was the inventor, came up with John on with the idea, I'm okay not being the majority holder of this company because my incentives and where I'm in life and what I have, what my vision of life is, everything makes sense for me. Just to give you an example, like when so my career path, I did my PhD here, I did a postdoc, and then I became a faculty here. The years I was a postdoc, I was probably getting a salary a third of what I would make outside. The way I would justify it, and we had raises with SageSpectra at that time. So I was constantly like calculating like this raise and my equity, this was how much it's worth. Does it like justify the difference between what I'm making here and what I could? So that's an example of the kind of incentive.
The math doesn't work if you have to count that equity every year, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you're only going to count it one time at some point, right?
And thankfully, I wasn't on the postdoc that long, so you got to just work out all that incentives all the time. So
I really appreciate that because that's how people think, and you have to gear the incentives to how they think.
Well, and it goes back to building a team. It's going back to you found a good CEO, and you know that there's a shortage of good CEOs. We've got a whole stack of companies that could use Madi in there, right?
Hey,
I'm not trying to recruiter.
Hey now,
I'm not trying to recruit right in front of you, but I'm just this is your point, right? You need. There's a world out there that wants so. You need to do that.
So the validation, I think, versus dilution is strategic investors, right? If you have a strategic, they understand the journey and it's easier. So we have strategic partners that are in the business, but we need the strategic investor. That's the next phase for us.
Potentially my last question. Again, if somebody else from the audience or the virtual audience has a question. So you guys have all drunk a lot of Kool-Aid on this technology. You should, right? If you guys aren't passionate, blindly, my baby is beautiful, kind of, nobody will be, right? But to the extent that you could try to think about what are the things that concern you, and it's not about, I'm not trying to have a Debbie Downer kind of end of the conversation. It's like, so what do you do to try to address those kinds of things that you think about as, oh, that's my lurking issue, and we as a team are doing X, Y, Z to mitigate that, right? Because we all know the statistics. Most companies don't make it for lots of reasons, right? You could just have an amazing thing and get to that. You've got FDA clearance and you're ready to sell, and you run out of money, right? That your company might fail for something as silly as that, but it would still be. So what are the things that you think about and worry you, and what are you doing to address those things?
Well, I constantly think about the team. It's like, how do I keep, the guy that does volumetric calculations of food interested, right? And on new projects, how do I keep Madi incentivized? And we've had a lot of hurdles. We got an award for SBIR, and we had we had a clerical issue, and then they took it back. Yeah. And we could tell multiple of those stories, right? So stay focused on the positive things. We've come a long ways. I mean, and then it's sweeter if you had a little bit of challenge, not too much, but enough challenge so that it's really meaningful to you. And that's kind of where we're at. And we have had some challenges, but it's going to be very meaningful. So keep on the positive side.
Yeah, I like to say that these are just the early chapters of our autobiographies. These are just the challenge chapters. The other chapters are coming next.
Dr. Z?
Yes.
So an answer I have to that question too is like, how do you deal with, like, the question was, how do you deal with like the failure? Well, you have to be successful only once. That's the famous quote. And also, like, everybody comes up with this statistics that only 5% of companies become successful, or whatever the percentage is. It's 1 to 5%. But if you put yourself into ecosystem and take calculated risks, that's what I've been trying to do. So if you stack up like 5 or 6 95% on top of each other and do the math, then your percentage of success is becoming.
Dr. Z, you just reminded me. I've had, it's 2 to 5%. I'm like, but unlike a grant, it's 10,000x return if you hit it. Right. I mean, so that's what you're talking about, is like, if you hit it, then it's thousands of.
And then you keep learning. Maybe like your first one, your percentage of success is 5. Next one is 10. The one, because once, let's say, like, your first company dies out after it's past the FDA. Second company, you know how to go to the FDA. Third company, then like, so like you learn, and if you make this your lifestyle, then you only need to win once. So
yeah, that's another trait that Dr. Z displayed there, is this is a lifelong journey. I'm not looking to partner with people that's just a one hit. It's like, this is what he wants to do. This is what Madi wants to do. It's in their thought process of how to build a formula to be successful.
I have kind of like a random kind of side answer
Please.
too, but just thinking about when you're asking, okay, like, these problems are going to come up. What keeps you up at night? How do you handle that? I think a lot of it too is just it's having that vision, which is what keeps you motivated, while also staying in the present. And what can we do right now that can either prevent that problem, or that can mitigate that problem? What are the things that we are in control of right now that we can be working on? And then we do it. Or we try to.
Well, listen, we invited you to do this. Again, thank you for doing it. This hour and a half has reinforced exactly why we invited you. You clearly think about these things well. The way you answer those last questions, the way you just think about, there's no failure. There's no such thing. This is just a challenge that you will overcome, right? So thank you for being here tonight, here at Texas A&M. Thank you for committing to advance this project. I mean, you might be compelled to do it. You might not really have it may be so in you that you don't really feel like you have a choice, but you do. I mean, obviously you have choices. We could all be out playing golf right now. I don't know what the weather is, but you're doing this, right? And this is it's part of you.
Golf, that's no good. I'd rather be doing this. Come on.
And so thank you, because the work that we do, Chris, going back to the question about what are we doing, we do these events to build a community, to build an ecosystem, to build momentum, on behalf of College Station, Bryan, Texas A&M, our entire region, about doing this kind of work. And it takes versions of you and examples of you like you to show that it's possible. It's not necessarily easy, but it's an enjoyable journey especially when you have a team the way that you guys do. And so congratulations for that. And we're pleased to be whatever our role is to be on that journey with you. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for everybody that's still hanging on the line. We love these events. I think especially, today was great. Please spread the word. We put a fair amount of effort into these, and I think we're delivering content that is helpful to others that are going to be on different phases of this journey. But it's only going to matter if we get more people engaged. So you're here, and hopefully others that would benefit from being part of this. We've recorded it. It will be online. So we'll send out the link. You can forward that on. And maybe 4 to 6 on a Tuesday is not the ideal time, and you can watch it at your own leisure. But with that, I apologize to people on the phone that I can't offer you a beer, but I can offer those. And maybe we should have had a beer while we were doing this. That would have been
a great idea.
We will take a little bit of a hiatus doing these over the summer, but we will pick back up in the fall. The tempo that seems to have worked for us well is about 2 per semester. So looking to do 2 more events in the fall, 2 more events in the spring. If there's topics that you think are of interest to you, I frequently say it. If it's of interest to you, it's a good bet it's going to be of interest to others. So we'd welcome hearing from you. We already have some topics that are taking shape for us, but please feel free we would love to hear from you some thoughts for future sessions. So with that, that's about all. And thank you very much. And
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Texas A&M.